Are you ready? Let's do this!
All right, guys, I just want to welcome everybody back to the Gold Corner. Like I said, every week we're going to be featuring new parents, new stories of new warriors. And this week is actually very special. We're going to be speaking about a little angel, a beautiful little girl, Aria, who is now in heaven playing with Mia. I had the pleasure of meeting Gabrielle and Michael. I actually met her through the bereaved parents, I believe, page that we have on Facebook. And that actually, it was kind of cool. It was interesting because I'm going to be uploading some pictures so you could see that there was a very, very similar features that Mia and Arya had. There were certain pictures that were actually taken. I mean, I've even actually showed my dad a picture of your daughter, and he thought it was Mia. So yeah, so I mean the similarities were striking. They look alike. So like again, I'm gonna be uploading some pictures so you all can see. And again, from all the way from San Antonio, I want to introduce Gabrielle and Michael. And guys, just thank you very much for accepting to be here and telling your story. I know it's not easy, it's difficult, but at least for me, I know that every time I tell the story of Mia, it helps in my healing process. A lot of people are afraid to come and ask me about her because they're afraid I'm going to start crying or I wouldn't want to speak, but I think that our daughters deserve to be talked about, and everything that they went through is not in vain. That everything that they went through, we have to get out there and we have to speak to people about childhood cancer, about awareness, about 4% not being enough for our children. You know, they're worth a lot more than that. I guess people do not see that. So that's why I wanted to create this channel so we can open up the eyes of people and open up to this different world that we lived, you know, that unfortunately we had to live. And we did meet in an unfortunate situation, but I'm glad that you guys are my friends, and I'm glad and I'm sure that this video is going to help a lot of people. And I know for a fact with you, I've texted you at 1 a.m. when I'm not feeling well. You've texted me as well, and it's just, again, we're a part of a group that people might not understand what we're going through. So that's why I wanted to create this and call it the Gold Corner, because these children are fighting. They're fighters, they're warriors, and in my opinion, they are the real heroes. And once you've been on an oncology floor, it'll change your life forever, and it'll change the way you think, it'll change the way you see things. So again, everybody, thank you for visiting the Gold Corner. And without further ado, I give you Gabrielle and Michael. If you want to introduce yourselves as well, and we are ready to hear your warrior story.
You go first.
Hi, I'm Michael.
Oh, I'm Gabrielle. We're Aria's parents.
Yes.
I'm 27. Michael is
Also 27.
Oh, so am I. I'm 27, right?
Yeah, I'll be 28 in August.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah.
We had Aria in 2015.
5'6".
And she was diagnosed with cancer January 17th, 2017. You know, one of the things that we learned was that what seemed like obvious signs of her having maybe like a cold or the flu actually turned out to be her cancer. And so that's not to worry other parents that way, you know, like Aria was running fever, she was fussy, she wasn't sleeping at night. She developed a limp all of a sudden. She was bruising a lot easier. That's not to scare other parents to think that the minute they see a bruise that it could be cancer, but it's definitely also important for them to not ignore.
Yeah, recognize that these are telltale signs. You know, the biggest thing for us was after the limp, one day she woke up and she just refused to walk.
I thought she had I thought she was limping because she fell at the park. And after about 2 days, when I noticed that it wasn't going away, I was like, okay, in the morning, I'm gonna take her. And then in that morning was when I woke up and she decided she just did not want to walk anymore. So when I took her to the emergency room, After some x-rays, they saw fluid in her hip and rushed us to the Children's Hospital of San Antonio, which is downtown for us. And we didn't learn right away that she had cancer. We thought it was just some fluid in the hip. She was good.
Possible infection.
They drained it, right?
They drained it, got little fluid, but they said that could happen. They sent us home with antibiotics.
And then her fevers weren't going away. Her pain wasn't going away. We take her back in, and her actual general practitioner, right? Her pediatrician, there you go. He was very adamant on like, no, she shouldn't be out of the hospital. If she has the disease, what was it called? Do you remember? It was an infectious disease.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it, but he was like, if that's what she has, most kids don't leave the hospital this early. She needs to go back right now. Like, take her. So we're like, oh my God. Okay. We take her back to the hospital, and they decided that they needed to do some more testing. So they did a biopsy, right?
Yeah.
On her thigh?
Yes.
They did a biopsy on her thigh, sent those labs out to get looked over. And that's when January 17th, which is probably only a few days later, was it?
Yeah.
Was when we found out.
Yeah, and actually, she was scheduled for surgery that morning, and Gabby had school, so she was actually gone for the morning. It was just her and I, and right before the surgery was about to start, they were about to come in, do the anesthesia. The doctor comes in, says we're not doing the surgery, and we needed to talk. And that's when she sat me down, and that's when she said that the results of the biopsy showed undifferentiated sarcoma is what they had first called it.
Yeah, that was another thing. She got misdiagnosed. She had cancer, but she was misdiagnosed with 2 different cancers. And I mean, by the time she passed, we learned of the newest one. So that's 3 different times of being misdiagnosed. So the first one was the undifferentiated sarcoma.
Yeah.
The odds were low. It was rare, so we were freaking out. And her doctor decided to send out her hematologist. Was that what she was? A hematologist?
Yes.
She sent out some more labs because she wanted to just be sure that that's what she had. And then they came back and they're like, because Auria, I think she had already started a chemo, right?
Yes. Yeah, they started chemo immediately, just kind of like a broad spectrum.
Oh no, sorry. It was 2017,
Yeah.
like different bits and pieces come back.
Yeah.
No, we waited about a week. We waited about a week for the results of the second opinion. Then they did some scans on Auria's body, and the cancer had spread.
That's right.
Yeah, it had spread to her arm, to her hip, her ribs.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, we need to put her on something right now. So they put her on something, and then they stopped that to tell us, oh, she doesn't have undifferentiated sarcoma. She has acute myeloid leukemia.
AML.
Which, I mean, they're both blood cancers, but it was just, it was a lot.
Yeah.
That was definitely a lot to take in. So one thing that we've learned is how many parents, how many families actually lose everything in the process of once their kid has cancer. We didn't have that situation per se. He was able to keep working, so I was able to stay with her. And it worked out perfect for us. So I stopped working. I think I kept going to school that semester, right?
For the first semester.
Yeah, I kept going to school that first semester. So we were able to make that manage, but we did learn about other families that go bankrupt during these times, can't pay for the procedures or, just in general for any of the treatments. It's just...
Yeah, it's
like you said, you learn a lot once you're on an oncology floor. Like the world is completely different. We saw a little boy whose family couldn't be there with him. So 5 days out of the week, we saw him alone, just playing with the nurses in the hallway. We met a mother with a 1-year-old, had just turned 1, but had already had cancer for 6 months. She was there. It was just her and her baby. We came into another family that was, they actually had border patrol outside of their room the whole time. So the mother wasn't allowed to leave. It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was so much. That was definitely, we'd been on the surgery floor before. We've been on countless of them, but that floor hits different.
Yeah, I'm talking about our first time. There was a code on the floor.
Oh yeah. That was rough. We had only been in the hospital maybe like 2 months. Maybe it was still, it doesn't hit you right away. And he got up and he put some headphones on Aria, and he was trying to tell me to put on mine too. And I was like, what are you talking about? But it was too late. We heard the code go off, and all you see like underneath the door is the shadows of nurses running, and it was sad. That was very sad. So, and then, it's not just kids. I don't want to say anything wrong. It's not just what you think is a healthy kid that gets cancer. There was a child that had, I believe it was Down syndrome, that also had cancer. I couldn't even imagine something like that. I mean, I couldn't imagine how to even handle these two different things.
Right.
So, yeah, that floor, you certainly do learn a lot. You
Yeah.
see a lot. You learn
More than you'd ever want to.
Yeah. So when people say like, "Oh, kids are so strong," it's it's not the cute little bald heads that we see that make them strong. As adults, when we get sick, our jobs, our financial situations, our relationships exacerbate our symptoms and make us feel even worse. As a kid, they don't have those problems just yet.
Mm-hmm.
So there were so many times where I thought, my dog, can you stop? Thank you. There was so many times where I thought there's no way she's going to get out of bed today. And she was up and running. I mean, even with, because she still had that limp for a very long time. She didn't start walking for about a month after chemo, I want to say.
Yeah.
And, but every day she would try. She would get out of bed and try to walk on it, and she would fall. We would catch her, and we'd be like, "No, like, please stop. This is too much. You need to lay down. You need to rest, Aria." And no, I want to play. I want to get up.
Yeah.
So that's what it is when we say that kids are strong. She got a shot of chemo in her thigh once.
Yeah.
I cried more than she cried. It was
Right.
It's definitely not. It's not joyful. You see a lot of commercials about kids and these cute little bald heads, like I said, and they're playing and they look actually somewhat kind of healthy. That's not what it is. I mean, she lost so much weight. She also gained so much weight.
Mm-hmm.
Her facial features were changed over time because of steroids. It's definitely not what people think it is. And it's good that you're talking about this and putting it out there, because people need to know, like, it's not cute little kids that look healthy. Like these kids, they're not showing you what's actually going on. They're showing you the most healthy ones that they can find. They're not showing you the really skinny ones, or the ones with the tumors in their stomachs, and their stomachs are really big, or they're not showing you those things. And that's what childhood cancer is.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but that is one thing that kind of gets to me, and it didn't get to me before, but seeing these commercials of certain hospitals that say, okay, well, children with cancer, they see them playing around and see them happy and see them, okay, yeah, but I mean, let's be honest, that's what, maybe 5-10% of what actually happens. They're not showing, like you said, the real sick kids, and that's why people aren't really putting a lot of attention to it, because they're showing what people want to see. You know,
Mhm.
if they were to really show what goes on, what we went through, what, you know, what you had to see, what you had to endure, the times that you had to cry because Aria was in pain. And like you said, I remember giving me a lot of shots, but I was the one that would end up crying, and they would take it like nothing. And I remember you sending me a couple of videos of Arya, and she was a feisty little girl, huh? Her vocabulary was actually beyond, you know, a 2-year-old or however old she was at that time. Was that because, and in my situation was because obviously Mia was around nurses and doctors that would speak maturely and you know, adult. uh, it, how did she come about like talking like that? Or I mean, because she was wise beyond her age.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I'd have to say about her. It helped that even before the hospital, we never baby talked. That I tried to do a lot of reading on just like, you know, ways to help kids and expand their mind and things like that. And one of the things I would always read is like, don't baby talk them. That's not to say don't treat them like kids or
Yeah.
babies, but you know, don't do the whole like goo goo gaga thing to them when they're like 3.
Little.
Yeah, we would talk to her right. We would ask her to use her words, and then we end up landing in the hospital, and we didn't really have a choice. We needed her to speak. We need to know what's wrong. So being around the nurses and doctors definitely helped too. Yeah, we didn't have a choice. And then from there, I don't know what happened. I don't know where that attitude came from.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't me. All right, it was me. But you know, I think people too, when they hear about childhood cancer, nobody really, it's also hard to comprehend. How does a child get cancer? And then you think child and you're like, okay, well maybe 6, 7, maybe like older. But we rarely saw the ones in the middle stages.
Yeah.
We saw more babies and toddlers than I ever saw children and teenagers that were sick. That's not saying that they don't, but I think just in general, people hear the word cancer for a kid and it just freaks them out because, like I said, how does that happen? You know, why does that happen? And then we don't have the answers for that. From what I've read, nobody knows why a kid gets cancer. There's nothing in their environment because some kids are born with it. I've read stories of babies coming out of the womb and born with cancer, and you're just like, how does that happen? And the best thing they can tell us is just that their bodies make bad cells. So I feel for people not understanding. I do just wish when it comes to talking about children with cancer, we don't see, you know, playing little babies. I want people to see those IV poles attached to a kid. Have you ever tried to play Tetris with a toddler connected to an IV pole? You know, it's not playing on playgrounds. We don't get playgrounds. You know, the hospital is our playground. It's, you know, it's just so many hidden facts about what all of this really is. And it's just, we've learned so much even after her passing that I still see people not understanding the seriousness of what childhood cancer is and thinking that I've had people tell me it's a hoax, that it's not real. I've had people tell me to, you know,
Alkaline water.
I've had crazy things in my inbox when Ari was diagnosed. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, stop it. You're upsetting me. So she was diagnosed, and then she hit remission in, I want to say May of 2017. And they were actually really surprised that she got into remission so quickly. She hadn't finished her rounds yet. I think she still had 2 months left, wasn't it? Or a month?
1.
She had a month left, and they were like, oh, wow, this is really early, but we were happy nonetheless.
Yes.
We finished our rounds, and we went home, and it's like, yes, she's in remission. Yes, she doesn't have cancer anymore, but now we've got a whole other world of problems. We need sunscreen because now the chances of a secondary cancer happening, especially skin cancer, have just quadrupled. Now we've got to worry about another cancer coming along. We've got to watch their kidneys and their livers because of the chemo and what it's done to the inside of their bodies. We're doing doctor's appointments.
She had a weakened immune system, so we'd have to let them know ahead of time for any appointments, so that way we can go in through another door or like straight to the back.
Yeah, so
it was always masks.
oh my gosh, yeah.
She eventually grew accustomed to wearing them.
Yeah, it took a little bit. She didn't like them. She was a child.
Yeah.
But after that, she didn't care anymore, and it just became her new normal.
Right.
It was sad. It was sad that masks were her normal as a child. So yes, she's in remission, and then that's just more things that people need to know. Yes, that remission happened. Yes, we're happy. Yes, we're home, but it's not over. It is not over. It is not, even if you go and you're 3 years down the road, it's still not over, because more kids, I think they actually end up developing, if it's heart problems. I've heard of chemo weakening the bones so much. 16-year-olds getting hip replacements.
Yeah.
Like, it's not over just because you're in remission.
Yeah, I remember even one time we were talking with the doctor, and they were saying how the chemo could affect her ovaries.
Oh my gosh.
And she was like, look, honestly, we don't know if, in the future, if she'd be able to have kids. So that's a call we had to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and that's a problem where when she was diagnosed, she was a year and 6 months, 8 months, something like that. And we're being told, like, hey, she has cancer right now at a year old, but down the road when she's able to have kids, let's say, in her 20s, she might not be able to, even if she's been cancer-free this whole time. So that's why I say, like, it doesn't just end right there. Once you get into remission, it goes on for the rest of their life. So it's thinking back on it all now, because we don't ever get to talk about all of that kind of stuff. I'm just, oh my God, I forgot that happened.
Yeah.
I forgot she told us that.
Mm-hmm. He was her first oncologist.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we're home. We got to live, enjoy what it was like to not be in a hospital.
Yeah.
And she was healthy. Her hair was growing back.
Yes.
She was eating like
So strong.
Mm-hmm. I was back at work. Everything was going great. And then December 2017, same things, fevers, fussiness.
Yeah.
And moms know. And doctors didn't want to listen to me. I took her to the ER so many times. Not in a mean way, but even dad was like, no, she's not sick. And I was like, I think that was more of a denial thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But I was like, no, I recognize these signs. I remember this. I remember this fussiness. I remember her not going to bed, the pain, the crying for no reason. No, somebody needs to see us. They would send us home. I'd go to the emergency room. Oh, and they told us that she had constipation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the ER doctors would tell me. They're like, she's constipated. You need to go home. Give her some.
And Muslim said,
Yeah.
do that.
Which was actually probably causing her more pain. And I was just like, it's not constipation. Like, somebody needs to listen to me. So
then you went in and you demanded that they call her oncologist.
I went to, because there's a children's hospital right here by us. I went to the one back downtown that we were initially at, and I went to their ER department, and I was like, I'm not leaving until you call her oncologist. And they were like, well, it's the middle of the night. And I was like, I'm not leaving until you call her oncologist. I don't know what to tell you. And so sure enough, they called her oncologist, and he, I guess, maybe saw her blood count, and it didn't look right to him. And so there we were, admitted, and there we are again, maybe a day or two after that.
Another biopsy.
They're looking at cells again to sit us down and tell us, hey, we're so sorry, but she relapsed.
And so they kind of took a look at it again. We talked over the plans, and ultimately we decided that the best course of action would be to do a bone marrow transplant. But the hospital we were at doesn't do bone marrow, so we had to meet with a whole other set of oncologists, hospital staff, and kind of work out the plan with them. And we had to transfer hospital. So now we were in the medical center, San Antonio.
No, it was supposed to be a stem cell transplant.
Stem
first.
cell. Oh yeah.
But that one, something happened with the donor, and we couldn't do it anymore. So then we had to do a bone marrow transplant.
Yeah. So we did the chemo to get her counts to 0. She had no immune system. Because if she had an immune system when they were attempting the transplant, there was a chance her body would fight it and reject it. So we had to hit her with some hard chemos, and
They literally said this is going to be the strongest chemo she will ever get.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, do we have to do this? Like, and they were like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And then there they are again. She might not be able to have kids in her future. And I was just like,
right.
I mean, if it's to save her life, then sure, just do it.
Yeah. And, that whole process was, powerful chemos. There was a 24-hour period where, because of the drug that they gave her, we had to give her a shower every 2 hours for 24 hours.
Every 2 hours.
So
on the dot.
Yeah.
It was hell.
And so, we even once, we made it through the day with some issues, and then we get to the nighttime, we're having to wake her up. Okay, it's time to shower again. 2 hours later, it's time to shower again.
That one was horrible. That was a horrible chemo.
Yeah, that was, and that was the first time that we had seen her develop mouth sores, because they had always told us about it. It's a possibility that she could develop sores in her mouth. Mucositis. But it wasn't until the transplant
that we finally learned what that is, and
it was horrible. Her mouth was swollen. It was red. She didn't want to eat. She didn't want to drink, but she had to. We had multiple medicines that we would actually have to hold her down and make her take.
Force her to take, because she needed them. She couldn't not take them. And mucositis is when they have these mouth sores, and it's not just in their mouth, it's also in their throats. Yeah. So anything she did hurt her. Talking hurt her. She would drool at night because her mouth was in so much pain.
Yeah.
One thing we did forget to mention was that because of how much pain she was in, even with the first hospital we were at, they had to put her on morphine.
Yeah.
When it was time to take her off morphine, she had withdrawals. So just like an adult, she had the shakes. She was angry. I mean, she was furious. She was hitting, and clearly we knew it wasn't her.
Yeah.
But just like an adult goes through withdrawals, it was the same thing. And that's important for people to know, that we've got 1-year-olds on morphine. That's insane. Where we are in today's world, it's that 4% funding is why we've got kids having withdrawals on morphine. There has to be something out there to where we don't have to put them on this, but we won't ever know. Not anytime soon.
No.
Because of the lack of funding. My 1-year-old shouldn't have been on morphine. She shouldn't have been withdrawing.
Yeah.
She was, and that was a whole other battle that we had to face, and that was about a day or two.
Yeah.
Was it?
Where that was the issue.
Yeah, just strictly we're not even worried about the cancer. We were worried about her withdrawing off of morphine and those fits and the rage, and oh gosh. So again, with the mucositis, she's on morphine, she's on oxy, and it's not helping. They can only give her so much too. one thing that him and I made sure we always did was that we were on the same page. So thankfully,
Yes.
doctors are great. Sometimes they're not always right. And thankfully, him and I were on the same page about a feeding tube. You know, she had the mucositis and she wasn't eating. They needed her to eat. It was important. We knew that. We understood that. So one of the medicines that she was taking, she would spit out because she was in so much pain. Well, one of her doctors, because there was a round of them, one of them came in and she was like, you know, we're just going to do a feeding tube on her. And I was like,
No.
Well, hold on. I was like, that's actually sounds like a worse idea because you're going to put that tube in and she's 3 at this point, which means she's going to pull it out. And now we're risking infection by putting this tube in and cutting open a sore. And then her taking it out and we're going to put it in again.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound like a good idea. It doesn't sound like the best option. I don't want to do this. And she was like, well, it's between life or death. And I understood because the medicine that she was taking was that important. I didn't like trying to scare me into doing it. But you know, once I have my mindset, I'm very persistent with it. So I was like, no.
Yeah, we weren't going to do it.
I was like, no feeding tube. I was like, I can hold her down. You know, we literally had to hold down our 3-year-old and pry her mouth open and hold her cheeks to force her to take this medicine because she's a kid. This is what I expect from a kid. But the doctors didn't like that we had to do that. And that medicine that she was spitting out was expensive. So every time they had to reorder it, it was a pain for them. So I was like, that's not my problem. That's what insurance is for. I don't know what to tell you. So I was like, no feeding tube. And I remember she just looked at me and I was like, no. And she just walked out of the room and I didn't see her again. She didn't talk to me. And sure enough, Auria only spit out her medicine one more time that day.
And then that was it.
And that was it. After that, she started taking it. So could you imagine the door we would have opened of risk if we would have forced that feeding tube down her throat?
Yeah.
So as with childhood cancer, it's also not just listening. You know, we don't know anything about it. So yes, if a doctor comes in and they're telling you what to do, you're going to do it. But sometimes listening to your gut is okay too in those situations. And like I said, we were already on the same page about it because it had been brought up before and we were like, we know our daughter. She is going to rip this thing out. She's not going to be happy. It's not worth it. So it also really helped that we were on the same page all the time and had already talked about it. And he wasn't there when that happened. He was at work. So that was a battle I had to have with the doctor on my own. So we're battling our kids having cancer. We're battling, you know, all of these toxic medications that they have to have. We're battling doctors sometimes. We're battling the nurses sometimes. It's more than just the cancer. It's a whole bundle of things all at once.
Yeah.
So she had her transplant.
Yes. You know,
she started healing from it.
new transplant, new Auria.
That's what we said. We'd say new transplant. No, new
cells.
New cells, new Auria. We said something like that.
Yeah.
It was funny. And then for the second time in her life, she got to ring the bell. You know, the survivor's bell. That was nice, but you know, once you have that transplant, now here we are in a whole other world of problems with the transplant.
Yeah.
So we go home and actually have it right here. She had to get put on this little machine. How many?
It was a TPN.
IV nutrition because she wasn't eating.
Yeah.
And we needed her to get better.
So at first, I want to say we had like a 2-3 liter bag that they would deliver. And you know, we had all of that whole machine hooked up to the IV bag, and it went into a backpack that one of us would wear, and we'd be within like 3 feet of her while it was running.
Just following her everywhere with this little backpack.
I want to say the first, when she was on the big bag, it was running over like.
It was like 16 hours.
Yeah, it was all day, as long as she was awake.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
Gosh, it was horrible. And then when she would sleep, we'd hang it with a hanger on top of something, you know, because you're like, if not, she's gonna roll around on the bed. It's gonna get tangled. It's connected to her.
Yeah. We didn't even go over reports. Multiple.
Right. I don't want to. We could be here all day.
Yeah. Our first experience with that surgery was they put in a central line. So they basically just, you know, had a surgery. They went in through her neck and dropped in a port into her chest, which went all the way to her heart. And the first one actually was down by her ribs. And the problem with that one was that
it was a needle.
To access it, there was a needle that had to go into the port that was under her skin. So essentially, every time we had to change it, we had to stab her.
Yeah. That's literally what it was. We were stabbing her.
Yeah.
At least once a week, but because again, at the time she was 1 year old.
Yeah.
There was once we did it 3 times in one day. Jeez, oh my God. Forgot about all of that.
So when we had transferred hospitals, they had said that port wasn't good anymore.
Remember when we were home?
Oh,
actually, her body rejected it.
Yeah.
I have a picture that I can send you so you could put it up if you'd like. Her body, while we were home, started to reject her port. So you see this piece of metal coming out of her skin. You see her skin barely holding on, barely intact, and the metal is coming out of her skin.
It was out. You could tap it.
Oh my God. We were like,
you know, we called the doctor right away. And at first she was like, oh, okay, well, we'll take a look at it. We're like, no, it looks bad.
Yeah, we were like, no, listen to us.
So she gave us her email. We sent her a picture. 15 minutes later, direct phone call. Come in right now for surgery.
You need to go to the hospital right now. Cover it. Make sure it's not exposed. And I was like, we were trying to tell you. Like, this thing was bad.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt her.
No.
She didn't feel any pain, but
it was an exposure risk.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
So remember I said she was misdiagnosed? When they started that first round of chemo, they used that port because with the chemo she was on at the time, that port was what was best for that kind of chemo. And then she was told that, oh no, she has leukemia. We're doing this kind of chemo. That port was wrong for it. They weren't supposed to keep using that port, but they didn't want to put her through another surgery. So they kept using that port. The chemo that she was having was too toxic to be going in and out of that line like that so much. And that's why her body ended up rejecting it. I think that in the long run, it wasn't worth it and we should have done the surgery, but we didn't know that at the time. We could have never known her body was going to reject that. We didn't know anything. Actually, so.
Second port was a lot better.
That's the one that went through her neck.
Second central line, that's the one that went through her neck. They dropped it in and it actually had, just a little tube sticking out of her.
About 2 little wires that were out of her.
Yeah. And
we had to flush those lines.
Yeah, they called it a double lumen. And
this is one of the kits we had to come home with every day. It would have the Tegaderm. A mask for us to wear so we could clean the line, an alcohol pad.
Sterilize.
Like just everything. We had to do this every night, actually, was it?
I want to say that was every 3 days.
Every couple of days?
Yeah.
And then if she had to take a bath, I don't know if you ever had aqua guards. They don't work.
No, they don't.
They don't work. Saran wrap works better than an aqua guard.
We would end up using like 5 of them. And be covered from like her neck to like her stomach, just to like make sure we had every corner covered.
Yeah, they sent us home with everything. I mean, these are the
little port adapters.
The little port adapters. Like, you go home, yes, but
you take the hospital with you.
Basically, the hospital comes home with you. You just don't have doctors and nurses. You're the doctor and the nurse now when you're home.
Right. And there was even there was Child Life, correct? Where they came in and they explained to Auria what we would be doing to her, but they did it they let Auria do it on a doll.
Oh, yeah, to reenact, because it's important to understand what the children are feeling. And we learned how much it scares her through that reenactment that she did in front of us. So, we leave her alone, we let her. And she pretended to be a doctor, and she was like, "It's okay, don't cry, it's gonna be okay." And then she pretended to be herself, and she was like, "But I'm scared, it's gonna hurt." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, this sucks."
Yeah, that she was able to come to that conclusion.
See, this is where it gets real. This is where we we relive these moments that they went through, that they're going through. And this is what I want people to know. This is what I want people to hear. This is what I want people to realize that is going on. So please continue.
Sorry, I had an iCloud thing pop up, and I'm not too
Just
sure.
click the Zoom call button.
Okay. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah. So then, actually, we ended up doing another port.
Oh yeah.
It was the same exact one. The problem was it kept breaking, so we had to flush it daily when it wasn't in use. And just over time, they weaken. I don't know. I want to say it's made of rubber, but I know it's not right. It expands, but over time, pushing fluids through it weakens. And I know I popped it once. The nurses, while they're doing their thing, pushing medicines and fluids, they've popped it, and it would literally like it'd just be the line. You would just see it just randomly balloon and then pop. So we'd have to quickly clamp it.
Because that's direct access to her heart.
Yeah.
That's scary when those lines pop. It doesn't look scary because it looks so simple when it pops, but it's terrifying, It just takes one thing.
Yeah.
One piece of dirt, one thing to fly into that line while it's exposed like that, and it's connected to her heart. It's a vein leading directly to her heart. So she did go through a surgery to have it removed from one side of her chest to the other side of her chest. Which was horrible. And every time the line popped, it didn't necessarily mean surgery. Sometimes they would bring someone in, and with our fingers crossed, hopefully that surgeon could fix it and we didn't have to do surgery.
Yeah.
But that wasn't always the case. And more often than not, we ended up having to do surgery to fix this thing. And it was immediate admissions back into the hospitals. It was so much. We're home from her transplant. She's cancer-free, and all of a sudden she's getting sick. We don't know why. Come to find out, she had graft versus host disease.
Yeah.
And man, that one was like trading a disease for a disease. I remember her doctors telling us that as long as she had that disease, the leukemia wouldn't come back.
Right. But that wasn't the case. She relapsed again.
September 2018. But with the graft versus host disease, that's when her body recognized those new cells as foreign and is fighting it. It doesn't want them because it doesn't recognize them.
Correct.
And something like that, they need steroids for. That's life-threatening on its own. We remember there was one night I took her to the emergency room. She had swollen like a balloon. Like we were like, oh, whoa, what's going on? She had these red patches all over her entire body. When we get admitted, they were like, it's parainfluenza 3. It's a disease called roseola. Like we were like, none of this makes sense. Why is she running these fevers? They put her through, I think, was it a surgery where she got the oxygen?
Yeah, she needed oxygen.
She came out of a surgery and they were like, she's fine, but her oxygen did get low. And we're like, oh my God. Like,
yeah, so they had to put a tube, and her voice was raspy and it hurt her.
It was She had been through more surgeries than I'd ever been through in my life. And at that point, I don't even think I had been through any.
Sure.
Just my C-section for her. And I was just like, I don't know how this kid is doing it and still like laughing and playing and wanting to go to the park.
Yeah, throughout all this, there were multiple, biopsies.
Oh yeah.
Surgery for this, surgery. I mean, stuff that we probably don't even remember, honestly.
Right.
Thankfully, we were always able to be there to take her into the operating room. They'd always let us, walk in with her, and they'd give her the laughing gas, and she'd fight it, and then she'd go to sleep, and then we'd go to the next room.
One time, her doctors were like, she gave us a hard time, so they gave her the laughing gas to put her to sleep, or was that what they gave her to put her to sleep?
It might have been the IV.
No, yeah, they gave her something to put her to sleep. I watched her go to sleep. I watched her.
Yeah.
I leave the operating room, and then they're like, so when you left, she woke up again.
Yeah.
So what do you mean she woke up again? They're like, yeah, she woke up laughing, and I was like, and they were like, it's fine. It was just, we weren't expecting that, and I was like, yeah, that's my kid.
Yep.
I would have expected nothing less from her.
That's right.
She fought going to sleep. That was rough. Yeah, we try to remember those good moments like that too. When she got her new port with the 2 lines that came out of her, I remember being so sad because I was like, oh, I hate this. All of the IV wires were all over her, her transplant wires, and she was like, look, Mom, I'm an octopus. I was like,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, I guess that's how we can look at it now. I wasn't sad anymore because she was like, I'm an octopus, and I was like, oh, I guess we can. We'll go with that. That works. So she was definitely the stronger one out of the 3 of us. It was definitely her, because there was times where I was like, I can't do this. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. Like, it's mentally draining. I was like, this is too much. And then she'd still be there, like laughing, and she'd play. Her lines would get stuck, and it wouldn't bother her under like the IV pole. She'd just push the IV pole, and she'd go back to playing with me. I'm there freaking out, and I'm just like,
she would just figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
She made her fun.
I said it was Tetris with an IV pole. She would get stuck everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she was always getting stuck. So it's definitely, there's so much to a child having cancer. You don't just get chemo, get in remission, and then go home. You've got chemo, you've got other drugs, you've got pain medicines, you've got the mucositis that could come from any chemo. You're battling, they get no immune system from the chemo, so you're battling infections, them getting sick. Family has to come in wearing masks and like full gowns. It's so much more than just, chemo, lose your hair, go home. It's like, no, that's not, stop it. That's not what this is at all. We spent Christmas in the hospital once.
New Year's
in the hospital. I think a Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
We didn't spend her birthday, so
not once.
Those we got lucky. Her second birthday, they pushed really hard for her to be able to get out. We were waiting on her immune system to build itself back up, though. That was more important. Mm-hmm. And then we just got so lucky. Her levels hit just enough for her to be able to go home. They're like, go have your birthday party. Yeah. You have to come back the next day, but go have the party. And we were like, thank you.
Yeah, and we did.
Yeah, we had her second birthday.
Planned in like a day.
Oh God, yeah. So then there's those things too. You don't know when you're gonna leave the hospital or when you're gonna go. So we had to plan her entire birthday party in one day. Yeah. That was horrible, but we did it. She had a blast.
She had a great time.
But that was stressful. I was like, I don't want to do this again. Mm-hmm. That was rough. And her third birthday, we were already home. Yeah. She had finished her transplant. We were just lucky that her immune system had built itself back up. So, it's all just, you can't say it enough. It's a lot. Mm-hmm. It is so much. It's blood draws all the time.
Oh yeah.
There's so many blood draws on these kids that
one time she accidentally, I'm sure, unscrewed the cap on one of her lines, and
there was blood everywhere.
Essentially just started bleeding out of the line.
This is connected to her heart, remember?
Yeah.
So there's blood everywhere. Oh my God.
And I don't even remember how we noticed it.
My sister Kayla had noticed it. She was like, "Hey sis, is she supposed to be bleeding?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"No, she's not supposed to be bleeding."
And then we, sure enough, look, and it's all over the bed. It's all over the sheets. It's on her. It gets on us as we're scrambling to figure it out.
Because we didn't know where the blood was coming from. So
Yeah.
we had never dealt with it before. We're freaking out. And she's just laughing.
Yeah.
Just like having the time of her life. She thinks we're tickling her. And I'm like, no, dude, like move your arms. I'm trying to figure out where this blood is coming from. We paged her nurses.
Paged the nurse. I think we ended up like just grabbing a random alcohol cap and just.
And it's just, you know, she popped the lid off of her central line. And,
yeah.
You know, it's like I said, it's connected to her heart. So it's going to bleed. And she did that and unclamped it. I don't know how she did it.
Yeah.
But those are also some of the things that people need to know. Like, they're also kids. So we've got these kids with cancer, giving them chemo, and we're also expecting them to have all these wires around them and not mess with them and not expect something to go wrong. And it's like, no, oh God, things went wrong so many times.
Yeah.
One time I put a dress on her that was just a little too tight, and that needle that we put in and out of her chest was in her chest at the moment, and it bent.
Yeah.
So getting it out of her, I hated myself for like a year after that. It was horrible. I couldn't. And it was something so simple, just putting a dress on her.
Yeah.
And now look where we were, you know. So she did get that graft versus host disease. It took a couple of days before they figured it out. And we battled it. You know, we did the steroids. Our cats are fighting. We did the steroids. We brought her home. And this time, she wasn't really showing the same signs.
Mm-hmm.
They were there, like the pain was there, the fevers were there, but the fevers weren't as high. The pain wasn't as bad. So even I was like, I don't know if she relapsed this time. But that is what ended up to be what happened. She ended up relapsing, even though she had the graft versus host disease, you know, because they said as long as she has it, the leukemia won't come back.
Right.
But she ended up having both.
And that's when we got her final diagnosis.
So that's when they come to us for the third time, and they're like, so you know how we said she had leukemia this whole time? We're like, yeah. He was like, well, it turns out she has something called RAM. It's a very, very rare form of leukemia. It was just considered.
Yeah, they just kind of named it,
like,
essentially.
This at the time was 2 years ago, so now we're probably at 4 years.
Yeah.
This thing is so fresh. So immediately he was like, there's no research. He was like, I'm trying. He was like, I'm messaging people in Washington. He was like, I'm gonna call, I think he went to St. Jude's. I mentioned MD Anderson. He was like, I'm trying to see what I can find for you guys. He was like, he was like, so far I'm not finding anything. We were like, well, hold on. How did we go from leukemia to, it was still a leukemia. It was just this crazy, super rare form. And it just felt unreal. You're just like,
yeah.
What?
So we looked into it. The doctor looked into it.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately we had found that, there wasn't a set treatment. Mm-hmm. There was no research on it. And it had
one thing that we actually did come across was her doctor was like, when I first got Auria, I thought right away that her leukemia looked like RAM. And I remember looking at him like, that was weird. That was a weird statement. It never really hit me until maybe about a year after she passed that he said that, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, if that is what her cancer looked like to you back in January of 2018, and you know how rare that cancer is. Why didn't you look into it? Why didn't you double check just to be sure? Because we've always said, if we would have known that then, she would have never went through a transplant. Never would have gone through one, because of how rare this leukemia is. I know in Australia now they have a treatment for this, like a trial kind of thing, but there's nothing. So if we would have known this then, we could have spared her so much pain. We would have lost her sooner, but I mean, I'd take that any day over all of the things she had to go through in that time if he would have just double checked it.
Ultimately, we put her first no matter what.
Yeah. So, when you have to make a decision like that, it didn't come easy so much to where we were like, okay, let's do it. It came natural. Like, we were like, all right, there's nothing out there. We could, force a treatment, because her doctor did say, we could try chemos, but I was like, no, we could try them, but for what? We're doing nothing but hurting her. By just picking these random chemos that we think might work, have no proof that they work, and just saying like, oh, hopefully this is the one, and then it's not. Now what happens? We have to do this again.
And they even offered another transplant.
Yeah, they did offer.
Immediately we shot down.
That was a hell no.
Immediately that was a no, because that was the worst. That was the only time I ever saw her spirit waver.
Yep. We never really saw her down until that transplant, when she got that mucositis, and that scarred us enough to where we were like, we could never do something like this to her again, especially because she had a perfect donor. Every single marker that they needed hit was hit with that donor. If we got it right the first time and it didn't work, how is it going to work a second time? So I was just like, it was immediate. Like you said, just, no, I'm not doing this. We're not putting her through that pain. So it didn't come easy, but the minute all of the facts were laid in front of, like, I know myself personally, once all the facts were laid in front of me, I knew what we had to do. I didn't like it, obviously, but there comes a point where you're like, are we helping them? Or are we hurting them? Am I doing this for her, or am I doing it for me? And if I would have kept her on chemo, I would have been doing it for me. And that would have been the worst decision ever.
The AML ran it. They flat out told us there's a 0% chance of survival. There had been one study done across the world where they attempted treatments out of how many? 15 children?
No, I think it was like 8 or 9.
8 or 9. 3 had made it
the furthest,
through the first round of treatment. But by the time we had gotten to reading that article, which was only like 2 years old, none of them had survived.
Yeah, we're alive at that point. Yeah.
So it was a definitive 0. So we did what was right for Auria. We did, agree, like little treatments here and there, for like comfort.
For Disney World.
They set us up, with Make-A-Wish, and
which we hated at first.
Yeah, at first.
Not even gonna lie.
At first, they brought it up, and we told them to stop talking about it.
Yeah, we said, go away, stop talking to us, because that's one of those things that you learn about through those commercials. They make you believe that Make-A-Wish is strictly for these diseased and dying kids. Sorry, we're all.
And
so we were like, this was before we knew she had RAM. They came talking to us, and we were like, are you trying to tell us our daughter is dying? And they were like, what? No. And I was like, so then why are you bringing up Make-A-Wish?
Yeah.
Is that for dying kids?
Eventually, one of the nurses approached us again and was like, "Look, I know they talked about it before you bite my head off."
Yeah, because I was ready. I was like, "What?"
Yeah, we were about to tell her to get out the room. But she kind of explained it's not, just for dying kids. It's, Aria's been through so much. She's been through all this.
She deserves it.
She deserves a wish.
And we were like, well, when you put it like that.
Yeah.
But, most, like I said, those commercials, what people see, it's not accurate. And that's another one of them, because we fell for that, where we thought Make-A-Wish was strictly for dying children, and that's not what it was at all. So we were like, in that time we had said no. So then when we found out, when we made the decision, we announced like, okay, Aria is going to be put on hospice care now. That's when that nurse came in and was like, hey, can you all think about this again, please?
Yeah.
And of course we're like, yes. We did Disney World, but she was 3. We didn't really know. She wanted to go to the Shopkins factory.
Yeah.
It's in Australia. I was like, kid, I don't know if that's what we can do, but we'll try.
We asked.
They said no.
Unfortunately, she was too young to apply internationally.
Yeah, we're like, Aria, can you not want such an adult thing?
Yeah, so we did the Disney World.
Disney World, yes. Florida's Disney World.
Florida. And it was
horrible.
No,
we're just gonna be honest.
Well, no.
Let's be honest here.
So
that was horrible.
Starting the trip, she loved
the airplane.
Loved the airplane. That was awesome. And then there's a village.
Give Kids the World village.
Give Kids the World, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this place is amazing.
Oh my God, that place is.
The houses that they put you in are themed like magical kind of shacks and stuff like that, and they have something every single day. They celebrated a holiday like every single day. So like Monday, they'd go around trick-or-treating. Tuesday, it was Christmas. Wednesday, Easter, and they had all these characters. They had a water park that Ari just absolutely loved.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that place was probably better than the Disney, but
yeah, definitely. They left gifts every day. They'd go in the house. Not gonna lie, sometimes it scared me. But they would walk in the house in the morning. We knew. They did gifts for her every single morning.
Yeah.
She had the option for the mascot, I guess, of the village to come in and read her a bedtime story, but we asked her and she was like, no.
Oh, it was a giant bunny.
She did. She got so mad at me. She was like, no.
Yeah.
Okay. She was like, I don't need a bedtime story. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Sorry.
And roller coasters and everything there. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
She did enjoy some parts of Disney, and
she got sick.
She got sick. We tried our best with the sunscreen and everything, but we noticed by the end of the first day, she just had like these little red dots all over. And we called the doctor, we explained it, sent pictures, and he kind of said it was just because she was out in the sun.
Yeah, and then those little red dots developed into blisters.
Yeah.
All over. I mean, they were everywhere. It was like colonies on her body of blisters. It was all over her face, her nose, her feet. It was everywhere. So there was one day where we did have to stay home.
Yeah.
And this was a 6-day trip. But also, Disney World for a 3-year-old was really rough. It's too big of a place for her to really understand what was going on there.
Yeah.
She enjoyed meeting Elsa.
She met Elsa, yes.
She met Elsa. That was
a wonderful human being.
Beautiful moment.
The best, yeah.
It was amazing.
That was the first time we'd ever seen Ari like starstruck.
Yeah, how does a 3-year-old get starstruck?
Mm-hmm.
But she was. We were like, you're too smart. You need to stop. Like, can you please be a baby?
So that was the best. She loved that. So there was a Frozen ride. She liked the Toy Story. Aliens.
There's a Toy Story alien ride that she rode 6 times, and they give you these Make-A-Wish passes so that way you can go to the head of the line. She used that to her advantage. She jumped in front of this line 6 times, and it was one of those spinning Oh, I was like, girl, you're gonna have to do that with him because I'm dizzy.
And she loved it. It was great.
I was like, those poor kids are waiting in line. I was like, Arya, like, come on, we've already done it twice.
She wanted to do it,
Yeah.
so we did it.
6 times.
Yeah.
I counted.
It was a lot of spinning. And then there was a few other little tidbits here and there, meeting Buzz Lightyear and Woody, and meeting Minnie Mouse, or was it Daisy Duck?
Daisy Duck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Give Kids the World Village was an adventure on its own.
Amazing.
Free ice cream.
Yeah.
She got to go to a spa.
She got her nails done.
She got her hair done.
Oh,
it was like she had no hair, so it was they like sprayed her head.
Yeah.
They like sprayed her head pink, and I mean she loved it.
She loved it.
It was awesome. That place was nice.
Yeah.
But again, it's there's always something. So she did get sick when she was out there. That one day did end up turning into 2 days, I think, of us staying home.
I think the second day we took her out at night to walk around.
Yeah.
At the playground.
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So there's always something. Always. Even in her final moments, there just had to be something that this cancer just had to do, to remind us that it's real. It's there. So we get home and we moved because it takes a village during these times. Can you stop?
Yeah.
It takes a village during these times. It really does. And his mom, Arya, the relationship they had was phenomenal. And it's okay to need to breathe sometimes. And we needed to breathe sometimes. It was hard to take so much in after all these years of dealing with this. So sometimes she'd literally just a house over, we'd walk. She'd hang out with his mom. But of course, as the days got on, she got sicker. That's the cancer taking over, and it was like a slow process.
Yeah.
So it was like she slowly declined. So you didn't have to see it all at once, which I don't know what I would have preferred, but
yeah.
It was we had to make a tough call to stop all food and drinks that included water. That was horrible.
Yeah. At that point, we were giving her pain medicine. We had her on some like pain patches just because of how strong the pain was.
Fentanyl.
Yeah.
We had a 3-year-old.
Fentanyl.
That was, that oh gosh, I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
We almost made it to Christmas, but she did pass. Hospice care, we got to see her nurses and like her hospice nurse and her doctor. If things concerned us, they would come, didn't matter what time of the day.
Yeah.
And again, there's always more to it. Declaring that she was going to be put on hospice care didn't mean we go home and just relax and just wait. Like she was still getting sick. She was still in a lot of pain. We're still worried, like, should we take her to an emergency room? Those kinds of things. And, I remember her nurse coming and trying to get us to sign the DNR, which I refused. I was like, I'm not signing that. It was too much.
Yeah.
I could do almost anything this entire time with her cancer. I couldn't sign that DNR, and I didn't. She needed 2 people, and he signed it, and Jay signed it. Because, like I said, I personally it was the one thing I could not do, and I still don't know why, because it wasn't the hardest thing. But
it's just what it represented.
Yeah, that's true.
That once she passed, that was gonna be it.
So we finally signed that, and like I said, just little by little, she declined. It was, she went from playing all the time to barely playing. She would play on the floor. Now she would only play on the bed, to strictly, she started sleeping more. She would sleep all day. And we just let her, because if we would bother her, like, check on her, she'd get mad. And I didn't want to cause like any emotions out of her. I just wanted her to be like peaceful. So we would just let her sleep. We'd check on her. We'd give her her iPad. I will say, when we made the choice to stop food and water, now I regret it. And I've talked about this before, because I've learned now she was going to die anyways. And her nurse at the time had told me that giving her food and water was only delaying her dying process. And in my mind, I was like, well, the longer she's alive, the more pain she's going to be in. Because, each day was only worse and worse.
Yeah.
And yeah, Auria, when we took it, she begged for it. Yeah, she literally begged me to give her water. She said please and everything. And I lied to her, and I told her like, oh, daddy's gonna get it. And on that day he didn't, but towards the end he caved in, and he was like, just give her the damn water. I remember I don't know what I went to go do, but I came home and she was not in the room. She was on the couch with him, and she had a pickle.
She loved pickles.
Yeah, so it was, that was hell.
Yeah.
So her last days, she was in a lot of pain, which required those patches. But we only ever got to use one. The night before she died, which was November 29th, her doctor would always tell us that sometimes kids need like reassurance that parents are going to be okay, or that their favorite pet, or you have to tell them like it's okay. So we made sure we did that all the time. We would talk to her, we'd be gentle, we'd be like, mommy and daddy are going to be okay, you can go now, you can let go. And she would literally tell us no. We knew she wasn't ready.
Yeah.
When she passed, it definitely, I would say, caught me off guard, because of how fast that happened. She was up and talking that morning, and then by the end of that night, she wasn't even moving. And she hadn't passed that night. She would only like moan and groan, and we would look at her eyes, and they were empty. She was looking at us, but she wasn't looking at us. So we put her to bed that night, and about 6, I went downstairs to watch a movie, and he stayed asleep with her, and she was on his chest the whole night. So at 6 a.m, when I woke up, I went upstairs, and that's when he was like, hey, check her, I don't think she's breathing. And I was like, my anxiety kicked in. I was like, what do you mean she's not breathing? Like, check her yourself, like you have her. And so he was like, Gabby, like I can't tell, I don't want to move her. And I was like, I started getting, it wasn't frustration with him, I think it was frustration knowing like we're finally having this talk is finally here. So I go and I check her, for her pulse, and it's not there. I know it's not there, but I didn't want to believe it wasn't there. So I was like, she's fine. So I turned to walk away, and he's like, no, she's not. And I was like, I know. So we had a whole plan set in motion, but as anything with cancer, nothing goes the way you want it to.
Right.
And we called her nurse. We initially wanted the first 2 hours to be just him and I, but called her nurse. I called one of my friends to come take some pictures of Ari, and in her last outfit, bathed and everything.
Yeah.
And then I ended up having family come over by like 8 a.m. So everyone came over. We had about 2 hours with her, and her nurse was like, you let me know what time you want the morgue to come. At the time, I should have pushed harder, because I would tell her like, well, how much time can I have? I wanted a number, like, do I have 1 hour? Do I have 6? Give me, what's the max? And she'd be like, whatever you want. And I was like, but I don't know what that means. She'd be like, whatever you want. So I was like, okay, is 10 a.m. good? She was like, okay. Now I know I could have had more time. It's definitely important for people to know too. Like I said, doctors and nurses are great, but sometimes you have to go with your gut. And I would have never, if I could change it, I would have kept giving Aria the food and the water. I would have had longer time with her. So I hope if anybody else does see this and they're feeling unsure about what to do, you just go with your gut, because yes, they have their degrees, but you're the parent, and sometimes you just know. So 10 a.m. came, and that was traumatizing on its own. I remember, like, it's over, but it's not over. And I've got these 2 girls holding open my front door, wearing all black, and I'm just like, holy like, what the hell? So we walk her, and there's this black van, or was it white?
It was black.
It was black, right? Like, everything's in black, which I hated. With the sliding doors open, and there was like 3 stretchers.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. And I couldn't do it. I had Ari, and I was gonna lay her down. I couldn't do it. I started backing up with her, and I was like, no. And everybody thought I was falling, so everybody came rushing to grab on me. But her nurse grabbed onto Ari because she thought I was falling too, and she just whispered in my ear, and she was like, let her go, Gabby, I've got her. She was like, it's okay, like, let her go. And I felt comfortable with her nurse. It took me a long time.
Yeah.
I called her her hospice nurse, the Grim Reaper, for a long time. I wanted nothing to do with her. She would come in, and I wouldn't talk to her, only he would. And she fought hard to get me to like her, and I finally did, and she ended up being someone who I ended up going to all the time for everything. But after Andrea was her name, got her, Michael came back, and he was like, no. He was like, you can do this. And he put Aria back in my arms, and he was like, nobody else should be doing this but you. And I was like, okay. So I got up from the chair I was sitting on, and I put her in the van, but I couldn't watch it drive away, so he stayed outside for that. And it's just, where do you go from here? How do you, like, they are literally there 1 minute and then gone. And that was worse than anything else, because nobody prepares you for that. After kids have their chemos or they get in their remission, you're always at those doctor's appointments. You've always got this whole team that's there, an immediate call, and they're there to tell you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. But once they're gone, everybody disappears. Once the child's gone, those doctors are gone, those nurses are gone, and you're just there, like, with this quiet, empty home now. So that this has been a whole other journey on its own. Um, it's not so much about finding happiness. It's literally about how do I function now. Um, I was so used to changing diapers and waking up and making food and for somebody else, and now I'm not doing those things anymore. And um, you're always waiting to hear those tiny footsteps running down the stairs. You're waiting to hear, those giggles from their room, and it's not there. So, grieving parents definitely, we definitely need more support out there because we get it while our kids have cancer. But like I said, it's always something. So once the kid is gone, so is everyone else, and you're just there by yourself trying to figure out what just happened and then how do I function from here. And you learn, you adapt, you don't move on, you literally just adapt. That's all it is.
And like you mentioned, this is a new normal for us. It has to be, and it's difficult. And it's difficult, like you said. Every little thing reminds us of something that happened with our daughters,
Mm-hmm.
and we need, again, more support for our children going through that, and we also need support for us. I know there are groups out there on Facebook, but you know that's why I want to create this. I want to create a family here. I want to create something to where we can do what we're doing right now and just spreading awareness and telling people, making them aware of our stories and how not it's not rare, and
Yeah.
how hard they fought, and and yeah, and I'm sure you guys get it all the time. Oh, you guys are so strong. Oh, you guys this, you guys that. No, you know what? I I hate. I'm, I don't want to say I hate it, but I just, when they tell me that I'm not strong. You're not strong. We're weak. We're human. We had a piece of our life, our entire heart just taken from us, and now having to live without that is so difficult. So we are forced to be the way we are now. We have to. We don't have a choice. We were not given a choice. And
Mm-hmm.
right now with everything that's going on, yeah, we're living in a messed up world, but people are talking such as, oh my God, I have to wear a face mask. Our children had to wear a face mask when they were 1, 2 years old, and
Yeah.
they had to adapt to that. So again, I know the strength it takes, and sometimes it's not even your strength. And like you mentioned, you were not the strong ones. She was a strong one that was making you guys be strong.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thank you guys. Honestly, thank you for sharing your story. Um, Before we leave, I would like for each one of you to at least say last words for parents, either that have gone through it or going through it, or parents that have perfectly healthy children. And Michael, it's difficult, and I've had a lot of dads reach out to me that they're happy that I've created this channel, because we need that support as men as well, and I Gabby, you, Mia's mom, all these moms that have gone through it, you guys carried the child for 9 months, and it hurts you, and I understand that. But there's another side, and those are the fathers as well. So we got to be here for each other, brother. And I'm telling you, you got a brother here in El Paso. Whatever you need, whenever, I'm here. So if you guys could just give us one last words, if you guys have any special organizations that you want people to donate to, if her little baby Aria has a Facebook herself or an Instagram to follow her story, please let us know so we can continue to follow her journey and even follow our journey, because this depression is no joke. This depression is horrible. I've we don't sleep. We sleep very little, and at least I get aggravated really quick. Again, I go from 0 to 100 in a heartbeat, and what I want to tell people is that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel this way. These things are going to happen. We're going through them and we have to live through them. And if something our daughter showed us was strength, if something that they showed us is that we need to tell their story and we need to be the voice for other children, and the voice for childhood cancer. And unfortunately, we were given this task. We didn't ask for it, but here we are. So please, guys, just some last words.
I mean, just the biggest thing I want to hit on all the parents out there is, you know, there's resources, there's people. Unfortunately, there's parents who are in similar shoes. So reach out. It's okay to need help. It's okay to need somebody to talk to. It's okay to cry. It's okay to, if you're happy on some days, it's not like you can only exclusively be sad. But just there's people out there, there's organizations, and any parent in this situation would be always willing to lend an ear to you, or a shoulder, or just be there. So please, it's okay to need help.
Definitely I think it's important for people to know that don't know what to say or what to do. Sometimes just being there is enough. But having patience is also really important, because I'm the same. I can go from 0 to 100 fast over the smallest things that shouldn't upset me, but they do. And I've learned that people don't have the patience to deal with those kinds of things. So that's why you end up losing a lot of friends. So just for anybody out there who might know someone, grieving and going through a loss of their child, just remember that the most important thing is to have patience, because on our own, we can barely understand what we're going through, and it's so hard to explain it to somebody else.
You want to talk about Aria's page?
Oh, yes. And then Aria's Instagram page, where we just post about literally what's on our mind at that moment or that day. We post the days that she was diagnosed, like the anniversary. We do all of that, and that is Aria's Army. So that'll be on Instagram.
AURIA Army.
Mm-hmm.
S Aria's Army.
Well, once again, guys, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to talk to you all. Thank you all for sharing your story. Again, you guys have a brother here in El Paso. I love you guys. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everybody who took the time to watch this. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Gold Corner, the real heroes, the real fighters out there. And we're going to go ahead and I'll be putting the link to Aria's page on the description. Please reach out to them and, go in there, look at her story, look at her pictures, and see this little girl and see what she was about. I've had the pleasure of receiving some of the pictures and videos of this little feisty little girl. And so please check them out, show them some love. And I'm sure both Gabby and Michael would be more than happy if you send them a message, if you need a talk, that they would be able to lend an ear. So again, thank you all very much for doing this. Thank you everybody for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, because you're going to be hearing a lot of stories of all these kids. So make sure you hit the little gold ribbon icon to subscribe, hit the little bell so you can be notified every time that we upload a video. Guys, my family, thank you all so much again.
Thank you.
And we'll be seeing you guys soon. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.